this is an Erasmus Plus funded project, so it's a public event, and we will be sharing the video after. So hopefully everyone's okay with that. Okay, so I'm going to play a little game. If people can, anybody know what these are? If you can just open your mic and let us know, or if you want to raise your hand, if anyone, anybody? No. And Maria and Vicky, if you can also just help me, if you can see if people are putting questions or responses in the chat. Anyone any guesses what this might be about? What these two colourful lines mean?
I think Ned has his hand up.
Ned, okay, Ned, if you can open your mic and let us know.
The top one is basically the average temperature, probably going back to the beginning of the 1900s, and each bar represents the average temperature for that year. And blue means cold and red means hot. The bottom one, I'm not quite sure, but it could be something like cold temperatures at night or in winter or something like that.
Okay. Where are you from, Ned, by the way?
I'm based in Lisbon, but I'm from Ireland originally.
Woo!
Very good, very good. Well, we've got 3 points there for Ireland. So yeah, the top one is to do with going from cool to warm, and that's basically what the world is going through. That's the average temperatures, and it's going up and up and up, and that's a big problem. The bottom one is, anyone else like to take a guess what the bottom one might be? If you just want to open your mic and speak, everyone's welcome.
Has to do with forest and desert, like the green and the forest, the desert coming over the desert, the forest. Sorry.
That's I'm reading as a tune there. That sounds like Abd, is it?
Yeah, it's me.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, that's it's not exactly that, but it's close to that. That's what you've described is part of it. It's not just from greenery to desert. It's the biodiversity of the world, and that's in recent years how our biodiversity is being lost. So that's also the great problem that we need to address. So basically, so we'll give you 3 points as well. So we've got 3 points for Ireland, 3 points for Palestine, Jordan. So great stuff. Let's see how this goes. Okay. Yeah, so these are the climate warming stripes that were developed in 2018 by a professor in Reading. And it really helped translate the idea of these complex, abstract ideas into means that we humans can understand a bit better. A few years later, the biodiversity stripes were developed to help with the biodiversity world. So, oops. So that's it a little bit more. So they help us really understand the changing nature of the times we live in. And really, the challenge of what we have to do is, and you'll see there, I've flipped these images because our challenge is to try to cool the world back again, to take it down from this overheating that's going through at the moment, and also try to bring the biodiversity back. So these are the challenges. So basically saying, make the world blue and green again. So a few notes on language. We don't use in the climate world and the people working in this area in the science world, we don't say global warming, we say global heating. And also climate change is used, it feels it's too kind of light and gentle. Really, we need to use language that is appropriate for the conditions that we're living in, which are climate crisis, climate emergency, or climate breakdown. So arriving home. So this is our home. This is our strange little place we inhabit together. And in terms of how we're doing, though, the question I've been exploring is humanity doing well enough to keep humans alive? In 2022, the UN Secretary General claimed insufficient action to alleviate global heating could lead to collective suicide. So Antonio Guterres said, half humanity is in the danger zone of floods, droughts, extreme storms, and wildfires. No nation is immune, yet we continue to feed our fossil fuel addiction. We have a choice, collective action or collective suicide. So that basically means that because of our use of fossil fuels, petrol, etc., all these gases, all these things that we're using since the Industrial Revolution, we're heating up the planet. And the response that's needed is a collective response. That's all of us, all the citizens need to work together to try to bring about the change that we need. And that's what we're exploring today. So, so what would it mean to win? this is, I come from the world of direct action, trying to engage in pushing for radical change. So a few years ago, we had climate camps, some in England, some in Ireland. This is just some of the kind of images that were used before the lead up to that, and then during that. This is in Heathrow to try to stop the expansion of Heathrow Airport, and it worked, thankfully. So direct action does get results. But during that time, the Turbulence Collective were bringing out magazines and asking questions and really commenting about the movements at the time. And they had this really nice cover of one of their magazines, which later was their book, called "What Would It Mean to Win?" So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a breakout, and that means we're going to break out our group of how many people are together. I'm going to stop sharing now for a moment. So we've got I think we've about maybe 15 or 20 people. So we're going to break into groups of two, and I want you together to talk to share about what does this idea mean to you? What does it mean? What would it mean to win? So I'll just bring it back here now. So yeah, so if Marie is going to put us into groups of two, and basically what we want to do this is a little game we like to play in the groups I work with, because we try to encourage the highest levels of participation, rather than the professional or someone in the know speaking and telling people. We want to open up processes where everybody can share their views in the best, most appropriate means. We find that smaller groups are really the healthiest to start off the conversations. So we're going to break into groups of two for 5 minutes. So the first person will speak for 2 minutes. The other person does active listening. This is where you really try to listen to what the other person is saying, and then we'll give you a message in the chat, and then change over. And then the second person will speak, talking about what would it mean to win for them, and the other person just listens. Okay. So in terms of in your groups, whoever has the longest hair, they're the first one to speak. Just simple as that, okay? So if you want to just say hello to start. Okay. So I think people are returning now from their breakout rooms. Hopefully that was okay. I don't know if the time balance was okay. We're going through a few technical things here in our own Wave team as well, as we navigate these challenges. So we're going to go on with the rest of the presentation. If anyone just want to give us a quick thumbs up or thumbs down? How did that experience go? Was it okay? Was it terrible? I've seen a few thumbs up. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay. Yeah. So with like many of these things, we've got different abilities and skills, and we try to play games and do things in a way that we can learn together. So experimenting and testing the technology is part of that. And I find as well that the best way to learn is learn by doing. So using that kind of idea in the process here. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to the next step, which is the presentation for about 20 minutes. And then when that ends, we're going to have another small breakout, and then at the end, we're going to have the 20-minute of conversation together. Okay, so if people have questions during the presentation, you can share them into the chat or write them down. And then after the presentation, that's when we're going to open up and ask questions, explore things, and all that. So if that sounds okay, hopefully we can just move forward. So, okay, so this is the topic we're exploring is shaping the future, strategies and challenges in climate activism. And I'm just going to get my timer here as well to try to keep on time. So sorry about that. Okay, so about 20 minutes. So basically this structure is going to be, I'm going to explore 3 questions, followed by what is ecological emergency, so deepening it down into different areas in this climate challenge. So these are the challenges, and then respond to that with the strategy. So what's actually happening on the ground? What are some of the projects? What are some of the ideas being explored? Okay. So I've just finished writing about all this sort of stuff for the last while. Just handed in a thesis on architecture as a political act. So I'm kind of myself only returning back to the normal world, reconnecting with people and projects. And part of this presentation is coming from this research, as well as the work that I've been doing for quite some years now. Whoops. So why is this work? So the 3 questions are, why is this work needed? how is the work happening, and what healthy places are emerging from the work. So those three things were broken into a three-pillared structure, and that was the base of the exploration and communicating what's going on. So why is this work needed? Vandana Shiva from India told us in 1988 that the earth is rapidly dying, her forests are dying, her soils are dying, her waters are dying, her air is dying. That was 1988. Since then, the Paris Agreement has been signed. We're already deep into climate breakdown. In Ireland, in Portugal, there's been massive storms. There's non-stop rain for weeks. The rivers are burst. There's thousands of people in desperate situations. I think about 15 people have died. So this is the new normal. This is climate breakdown, and it is going to get worse because of the way humans have been treating the earth. In 24, we exceeded the 1.5 degree level. That's Copernicus. That's the EU's climate body saying that. And last year, James Hansen, the renowned NASA climate scientist, said also that the 2 degree level is also dead. So tipping points are fast approaching. And this means that where we are now could be similar, nowhere compared to where we're going to be quite soon in terms of total climate breakdown. How's the work happening? Well, thankfully, this young girl a few years ago made a fuss, and that led to, thankfully, angry kids getting on the streets and kind of resurgence of the climate movement. There was declarations of climate and biodiversity emergency made. We also had groups like Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, on the streets, but also engaging in further direct action. And this is great to see. It's needed. COVID came and that affected things quite a bit. So one of the things I've been looking at is this idea of, with the climate movements, the social movements on the streets, they're often against things. We're against climate breakdown. We're against all these systems that are causing the pain. But to move from being against to being for, that's one of the challenges. And that's where moving to community-led initiatives comes into play. So that's basically where you are, trying to build an alternative where you are. And that could be like in Dublin a few years ago, making a community garden, or a range of different things. And you can see that there's loads of examples out there. There's 3 links on that you can see on the presentation link to maps of different examples of community action happening on the ground. But then moving from that though, then the next challenge is that a lot of these groups are still working with the sustainability mindset, which is trying to maintain a system which is broken. So a regenerative approach is trying to actually work with the processes of nature, understand what that means, and working together. So a lot of the time, this is working around what we call bioregions. So for example, around the water basin of the Tejo, the river that connects Lisbon to Madrid, working together, taking that as the unit. That's the community at the macro level where we need to start working together and trying to work for an improved bioregion. So from that then, what healthy places are emerging? Well, the IPCC report a few years ago, which focused on solutions, had this image in 22, and this was of Findhorn Eco Village in Scotland. Part of my research has been living, working, and doing projects with some of the different eco villages. And they're just one example of communities who've taken action to try to create communities that shift away from the main dominant system at present. Findhorn, Scotland, grew up around a little caravan park out on the north coast, out beyond Inverness. But we've got lots of different diversity in these eco villages. In Cloughjordan in Ireland, that was a small existing little village, a market town really in the middle of Ireland on the train line. But they said that they'd add the eco-village onto an existing community to try to support and to make the community come back to life, because a lot of Irish villages have been in decline in recent decades. Then you have things like in Schloss Tempelhof in Germany, where you have old villages almost dying, and they've gone back and taken over the whole place, and they're rebuilding and creating communities again. The eco-villages, some of them are also happening in the urban realm. Christiania in Copenhagen is a squatted space and a derelict army barracks in the heart of Copenhagen, taken over the 70s when people had no access for their kids or places for their safe places. So they went in and took it over. So that's one main urban place that we have. So part of my research was looking at, well, how can we bring these ideas from the villages to the cities? I'm not going to go into that. There's interesting things going on in China, but we're not going to go into that today, or maybe later. So what is ecological emergency? The challenges that we need to address. I've broken that into 5 sections built on the GEN, or the Global Eco-Village Networks, 5 dimensions of sustainability. So color-coded here. And I'm going to go into them in a little bit more depth, and then from there move into the solutions. So climate breakdown. Climate action is one thing, and climate justice is something else. Climate action is actions that we take to respond to the challenges of climate. So you can be making a community garden, and that's it. It's very local, and you're just thinking about yourself and your little community, and that's one thing. Climate justice has a different aspect where we realize that we are a global community, and not everybody is affected by the challenges of global warming, global heating, the crisis to the same degree. Also, it looks at where the problems come from. These massive companies that have been making major profits from the petrol industry and others. So the original use of the phrase climate justice was 1999 from the Corp Watch. And there you can see the booklet that they released. It was very much, painting these big groups like Shell and Texaco as they're really the problem. Hickel from the Degrowth movement points out that we're expected to hit 3 degrees of global warming, and what that will lead to is 2 million people in the zone of death by either droughts, no water, or an extreme heat, or extreme floods, etc., etc. So, and this is, as we saw in recent weeks in Portugal anyway, this is not something far away. This is already happening. 15 people have died in the last week or 2 here in Portugal because of the start of the breakdown. The biodiversity crisis is really incredible. We have lost 73% of the wildlife population between 1970 and 2020. We are destroying the planet. Capra wrote at the end of the last millennium that as we go towards the beginning of a new millennium, the survival of humanity will depend on our ecological literacy, on our ability to understand these principles of ecology and live accordingly. So basically, some scientists are arguing that if we don't get our stuff together, the human species will die off. And many of us believe that will be the case if the present situation is allowed to continue. Satish Kumar, a man from India, he points out importantly that the words economy and ecology have the same root, oikos in Greek. Oikos, logos means understanding of home, and oikos, nomos is management of home. So this is important to understand where we are, what are the relationships are, and how to move forward. Some economists have been pointing out that the absurdity of people who think that we can have indefinite growth on something which is a limited system, a physically finite planet like planet Earth. English economist Boulding. Also, Naomi Klein recently said that our economy is at war with many forms of life on Earth. The economy demands to avoid unfettered expansion, so the present system to keep on growing, but that doesn't hold up with the laws of nature. 50 plus years ago, the Limits of Growth was written, and it pointed out that as with the massive increase, like this bell curve that we see, given from the access to cheap oil and available oil and previous from coal before that, it predicted that things would rise to a point and then start to enter collapse. It was laughed at, it was ignored for about 50 years. The recent scientific research into this is proving that all the estimations are coming true. So we could be in for a very rough ride quite soon. The left image there, permaculture, points out that we've 4 scenarios. We've grown. Some people think we can keep on growing at this rate forever, the techno explosion. So people like Musk, etc., just take over other planets and all this other stuff. Others believe no, that we're going to hit a crash and woof, go into total collapse like a Mad Max scenario. Others believe that we can where we've got to, we can keep on going at this rate, which is impossible because our system is limited and it's got only a certain capacity to keep going at its rate. Or others believe that we need to start coming down to live within our limits, to live sustainably. And the system on the right there breaks that even further. And this is from the post-growth world, showing for a kind of a roadmap for wealthy nations, how we've grown, but then we need to degrow. We need to come back down to a state where we're starting to hit what we call a steady state economy, where we're hitting the limits and working within those limits. So the degrowth world, I'm part of that community. We advocate how solutions where we can pull back and start living in this way. There's many different groups that are now active in this. So we've got the steady state, the well-being economy, and degrowth, permaculture, and many more. Also, to point out, in terms of the ones of green growth, believe that we can keep on going. The SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and the whole European economic model is based on the idea of the green growth, so that we keep on growing. Growth is still the active ingredient that's used to drive all the projects. So Wall and Capra have a link there you can watch, them discussing that we need to reframe SDG number 8, which is about a relationship with growth. The recent tool of the donut economics is almost like a compass showing us how we can move forward. And that's got 2 thresholds. One of the inner one is the social threshold, and the outer one is the economic or the environmental threshold. So basically, trying to create a system where we don't go too far in, where people don't have rights, people don't have access to things, or we don't go too far out. So we're starting like, too much pollution or taking too much land or whatever. So the donut is this idea of if we can learn to live within these limits, that's a safe place, and that's a way that life can thrive. The example is given: a tree. A tree grows; it doesn't keep growing to the end of its life. No, a tree grows, it hits the natural level, the natural limits, and it stays as part of a balanced ecosystem for the duration of its life. And that's the way we need to move forward, the way that we're not doing now. So moving from that to the social, here's an example of what kind of images we see of future cities: the sustainable city, a smart city, a green tech. Is it a just city? Well, this image isn't. This is a leaked document from Trump. It's his great plan for the reconstruction of Gaza. This is the plan for new real estate, the Riviera in Gaza, that is coming on the back of a genocide. 2 years of genocide, ethnic cleansing going on in Gaza. We've all been witnesses to this. And this is linked with a value system, a logic that's come from a long time, which is still present, whether we're fully aware of that or not. So I'll just read this out. We can discuss this again, probably in depth, in the breakout at the end. So the growing rise of fascism in the US, and that's Mary Robinson from Ireland, the elder, saying, yeah, the US is hitting fascism now. The UK crackdown against peace activists, the growing threat of an escalation of racist violence in Ireland, UK, Portugal, and beyond, the ongoing sacking of Gaza and settler violence in West Bank and Trump's development plans. It is all linked to climate injustice, stemming from the colonial, extractivist, white supremacy value system, WASP, at one stage, that led to growth at all costs of neoliberal capitalism. So that's what we've seen from South Africa. Bishop Desmond Tutu a few years back said, if you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And it's the UN who declared that it was genocide. What's going on in the States is appalling. Murders on the streets of Minneapolis. So Alex Pretty, RIP, and excuse my language, but fuck ICE. People are pointing out this is just a repeat of what we've seen too many times in our history. So we need people to stand up and stop this going on. Yeah, if you can we'll keep questions till the end, so if you can keep your mics closed, thank you. So what went on in the last few years in Gaza was appalling, and different people did take action. In the climate movement, people did take action. Farhana Sultana there points out that the climate justice movement is led by activists, youth, indigenous groups, academics, and unions. The aim to decolonize climate at a basic level by integrating more decolonial, anti-colonial, feminist, anti-racist, and anti-capitalist critiques. So that's what climate justice is, and that's the perspective that I'm coming from. Greta Thunberg, she also kind of supported this and said stand with Gaza, and that led to a split in the climate movements, especially from Germany and much of the European movements, which felt a little bit awkward about how to respond to the initial attacks in Gaza. And this is still something that is cut to the part of the white supremacy problem. This doesn't mean that all white people are white supremacists. No, that's not it. It means that there's certain structures in society that still hold. So the legacies of oppression and domination and colonialism, they're still there. And we really need to work harder to understand we have blind spots. So becoming literate in this is part of the challenge. Moving on. In terms of the culture of, or the life, the culture, Koyaanisqatsi is a word from the indigenous language of the Hopi peoples in North America, and it basically means life out of balance. It was a film from the 80s. Friedrich Kappers talked about, and others talked about, that there's a paradigm shift happening, that the value system of the West has moved recently because of, basically from pretty big strange ideas from quantum physics in the 1920s, but it's challenged our worldviews and it's starting to move. Our value systems have changed and will continue to change. In Ireland, 5,000 years ago, we perhaps were more aligned and understood the wider aspects of the home that we live in, the stars and the planets on where we are, around that. That's Newgrange, up about an hour's drive north of Dublin. Wheatley's two loops model is used in a lot of the work we do, and it's people realizing that the end of the dominant system, that's one thing that's happening. So one paradigm is dying, but at the same time, a new world is coming into being, and that's the ecological, socially just world. So we need to help kind of hospice. We need to assist the old world in dying and to help bring about the new. So that goes into helping find work that's meaningful, that doesn't trash the world and starts working with solutions, amongst other things. So that's a little bit on some of the challenges, really quick on all of that. And now we're going to move into strategies. So what's happening on the ground? What ideas are there to actually help us move forward? What gives us hope? So part one, direct action, get results. These are just quick few little projects I've been involved with over the years. In Dublin in 2005, we set up a community garden up in Dolphins barn along the canal. We didn't ask for permission. People agreed to come together and to try something, being aware of the consequences. So we identified a space. We did a tree walk, so planting trees with communities there in Sheriff Street, East Wall, up around Croke Park with homeless communities, coming into an abandoned site which had been abandoned for 30 years. We also did bike rides around the two canals. We called it the Botanic Spine. It was illegal to go along the banks of the canal then in bike. We used this action as a means to challenge the law. We won. We even got the deputy mayor to come down and plant food and help weed in the garden. And the garden, well, it was eventually evicted, but locals in the area found another space and gave the community a space, and it was there for nearly another 15 years. It just closed down the last year or two. And it was a lovely experiment of what happens when people move to action and work with communities. Reclaim Power, Copenhagen, 2009. This was during the big COP, the UN COP talks, the world leaders coming together. This is when we came together. There was the Social and Climate Justice Caravan. Indigenous groups came from around the planet. Climate justice groups came to support them. I was doing language support. We went and we arrived in Copenhagen. We were put up in Christiania. The police came in, set up some situation. There was shooting from the police, shooting of rubber bullets. Barricades went up. There was confrontation with the police. Thousands or hundreds of people were arrested, taken in, put into cages. The demonstrations went on. At the same time, well, before that, people had put this document together. So peoples of the world's climate movements come together to write a shared document, how to keep the world under 1.5. So what we did, we set up a communication space on the streets. So that's us together having a shared communication space, saying that the leaders in the world are either incapable or not willing to make the sufficient changes. Delegation inside tried to lead to join the people outside, mostly Latin American. There you've got indigenous groups and some indigenous North America, like Tom Goldtooth there and some of the others. The police hit them, didn't let them join the people outside. So many, at the end, thousands of people were arrested. Months later, it was found out that the police had acted illegally, that their actions to arrest people without any cause was found to be illegal. So that's part of what went on. But anyway, some of the people shared our views. There's a woman from Oaxaca in Mexico talking about what's going on in her world. And a lot of these people are coming from communities where people are still being murdered. There's death squads, all for the extractive. People have gold in their feet. People are big companies want it, etc. 2011 in Barcelona, the Spanish Revolution. After a few years after the massive economic downturn, the economic crash, people took to the streets all over Spain and occupied squares. It started to go out beyond Spain. There was a call of people of Europe to rise up from Greece that was responded to. So we lived in the square for many days, months. There was assemblies every day. People talked together, took decisions together. There's a picture of my wife. We went and slept in the square many times. What that lead to? Well, as you can see on the right, that's a woman, Ada Colau, who's the head of the homeless support group, PA, which is the group of people affected by mortgages. She was arrested when occupying a bank in that picture. Later on, she became the mayor of Barcelona, and they opened up a feminist approach to making cities together. So taking the decision-making process out of the centres of power into the streets, into the squares. So check out Fearless Cities, great resource in terms of real radical democracy. In Brazil, in Curitiba, the Cyclists Square, 2014. In the mid-2000s, these kind of punk activists started making gardens and painting bike lanes in the streets, getting arrested, getting fined. But it started to grow and grow, and they built up a bike group called Secret Iguazu. Iguazu is the name of the river. Things really started to get organized. They eventually got given a corner on a street which had been a no-go area. They built it up. They designed and built the street for nearly no money. And they did through Mutirão, which is a collective work process, and they invited all the public to come and join them. So people who had been homeless, there's plenty of homeless people in the streets in Brazil, they helped, they joined. People, different sorts of people in the businesses nearby came and joined, the kids came and joined. It was a really interesting process to show how the territories, the places where we live, can be created in different ways when people are given the green light to work together. And since then, they've done many more things and actually have been able to implement all their dreams of bike lanes throughout the city, having a 40-kilometre limit to the city centre, amongst many other things. And the last one then, more recent, Quinta Ingleses here in Carcavelos in Paré and in Lisbon. It's the last green space between Cascais and Lisbon, a 50-plus hectare space that is now under threat of being destroyed because of major developments. There's whole lots of dodgy democracy that's gone on, and lots of strange dealings, but the building work has been stopped again. The last judge who gave the go-ahead for the last building work has been kicked out. He's been found to be biased. So this group, the SOS Quinta Ingleses, have done wonderful work to use culture as a tool to try to bring about change. So one example of that, bringing in a woman playing her classical piano tied onto the back of a pickup truck, driven into the middle of the 50-acre space. About 200 people are listening. Beautiful. And their newest legal challenge, it's a citizen-led plaintiff. The citizens are taking the state to court, basically, because of this, what they've allowed happen. That's the 66 Palaquenta. And they just see some of the images of what's going on, including the destruction. And this occupation happened in last May. So the links there take you to an interview. You can listen to them and lots more. So that's some of the actions. Now going a bit further out into some of the strategies that are happening. The key to this is really connect communities and connect with nature. The radical art activists Isa Frimu and Jay Jordan from the Lab of Insurrectionary Imagination brought out this lovely phrase in 2015: we are not fighting for nature, we are nature defending itself. So hopefully we can reflect on it a little bit more. And I've been playing with that for a few years on some of the little projects we've been doing. I've been working with the group ECOLISE. Some of the work is there. So a little play we did, The Cloud That Kills the River. And then with the Wave group a few months ago, or a few years ago now actually, facilitating a climate justice festival. So in Curitiba, this idea, when the big UN have their climate talks on, this idea of opening local climate hubs, because a lot of the scientific talk can be very abstract. So trying to have processes where we can bring citizens together, talk together, and try to translate the gobbledygook into, well, what does that mean for us in our world? That's what we did in Curitiba, had a 2-week moment of working together, putting on events on the streets, climate assemblies, games, putting on live transmissions from the COP in Paris, and then looking at, well, how can we transform Curitiba, make it better? That could be something done in every capital city or place where people interested citizens are. A small thing I'd encourage is for any process we're engaged in, I think the worst thing is to make it boring. People are not excited and they don't want to get involved with boring, depressing processes. So trying to make it as much fun as possible, trying to be as creative as possible, and trying to be as generous as possible. Play is a huge part. And these are just a small example of some of the kind of moments we've been up to. Love food. Our relationship with food is so embedded in this. So planting spuds in West Clare, or eating physalis in the food forests in Portugal and Lisbon, or up in Ayacucho, eating the lovely sunflower seeds. Change culture. This is really the key to this. How can we change the dominant culture of our times? So use creativity, dream your future, and then have fantastic adventures to get there. In 2009, the system change and climate change, from that document we put together, that has become more dominant, and it's starting to become more and more present, and has a lot further to go. A lot of this is connecting with Indigenous groups, understanding their arguments, built on solidarity with them, understanding as well the more, say, spiritual side, the more kind of ephemeral part, actually our connections, what sort of quality of life do we have, as well as the putting an end to extraction, putting an end to death squads that are killing people to get access to their resources. We've worked with art, so connecting the art and the activist communities in Dublin's Project Art Centre 2004. That was the first invitation after to kind of do some writing. So that's all the links are there in the chat or in the online space. I'm sure some people have seen this in the last few days. There's been a really beautiful action in the middle of the Super Bowl when Bad Bunny, a Puerto Rican artist, celebrated the Americas, not the United States, the Americas, that whole continent from the very tip of the north to the very tip of the south. That did, if anybody has Latino friends, they would have seen so much what the pride that they had in this. This really recalibrated, it celebrated, and it fought this phrase, the only thing more powerful than hate is love. This is now resonating. This is doing the rounds. People are so excited seeing the power art can have to change the world. That's a little bit more in it. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. You probably have seen it. There's the link, the video, you can see it. Yeah, and interestingly, he's got the Puerto Rican flag from the old days, which was illegal because it was an independence movement. Similar how art can change the world, and music and all this. This is what we saw a few months previous in April in the Coachella Festival. It says, it's a bit hard to see, it says, Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people. This was followed by, fuck Israel, free Palestine. These are from an Irish band, Kneecap, from Belfast, West Belfast. These guys have really changed the ballgame here because they have used culture as a weapon. Coming from West Belfast, people might know the full history, but they're used to this. The Irish people, we've gone through what Palestine is going through. They understand absolutely the power of culture to hold the narrative, to create a culture, and it started to work. More and more bands are boycotting concerts if they're signing up and supporting Zionist systems. It can go further, of course, and it's gone beyond music into all aspects of art. And people ask, well, why are the Irish so into this? Because we've gone through this. we've had been colonized for 8-9 centuries. The English came over, they pushed us out, they ethnic cleansed. This image here is the big river, the River Shannon, where they pushed Cromwell and his army in the 1650s, pushed the indigenous out over the other side. In the 1840s, we had the Great Famine, like in Gaza. They said, oh, there's a famine there. It wasn't a famine. There was huge amounts of food, but it was all being exported under weapons to be taken for the English economic system. Millions died and millions emigrated since then. So Cromwell shouted to hell or to Connacht, that's that green zone, including Clare in the old days, where they just expelled people over. So that's why we can identify with the story. So dealing with it, yeah, it helps to know your history. Sadly, I feel personally, Irish people aren't as aware of their history as much as they did in the past, but that's another thing. Anyway, what else is happening? From the post-growth world, we had the Woodstock moment in recently. We had a 3-day Beyond Growth conference in the European Parliament. That was followed by 5 follow-up sessions in a few different countries. The image down the right is from the Irish one. It was an all-island affair. It was really special. And yeah, much can be built on. And the image here from the European Parliament at the end, the Degrowth community put the banner saying decolonize, democratize. Sorry. Okay. Other work we've been doing is about bringing in sustainable and just cities. That was with the Urbana project, which ECOLISE was working on. Cities are changing. If you are based in cities, try to push for greater change. Working around water is a great way. Copenhagen, you see that people are swimming in the water, diving into the waters again. Utrecht in the Netherlands there, they took out a canal, they put in a road and then they pulled it out after a few decades. So this is what happens when people push for change. So it's all well and good people moaning about things, but we need to take the next step, which is actually, well, what are we for? And then actually get organized to implement. That's the challenge. It's doable. It's happening. The rest of us can learn from those that have done it and use that to help us go forward together. Other things, work with the ECOLISE group there, been around fire for the 10-year anniversary, made a fire together, listening to the stories, the origin stories, but also connecting around water, bringing people to the water in a more wild zone that was up the Basque Hills in the north of Spain. Rivers are very important. So some of my advice would be go to the waters and the wild, stick your head into sacred rivers and listen. Listen to the waters. This guy here, Moncan McGann, he died sadly last year. It was a huge loss to us in Ireland. He says that there's no doubt that rivers were considered to have elemental power. They contained access to wisdom too. I'm going to try to play some words of his. So just give me a moment. I'm hoping this works. If it does, we can listen to Moncan talking about the rivers.
And for our poets who were writing, when they were composing poetry, they were trying to decode, or to grasp a really gnarly concept. They would go down to the riverbank to seek the wisdom that was there. There's a great the colloquy of the.
Yeah, so that's hopefully that you heard that okay. I don't know if it worked tech-wise, but we'll find out later. So go to your rivers, enjoy the rivers. And that brings us to a massive sea change. This phrase from the indigenous community of the Iwi Whanganui in New Zealand, they said, the great river flows from the mountains to the sea. I am the river is me. This community fought for the rights of their river for 140 years against the British system, against the New Zealand system, and they won. It was the second nature entity to be given the rights of nature. This is starting to get replicated in other indigenous communities around the world and beyond. And I think this could be a game changer. If we start to have guardians who are willing to stand and speak for the places that they live in, the territories they're from, this can help bring about the change to start dealing with the damage that's there. Some of the resources, GARN and the eco jurisprudence, are tools to help us move forward. This is the current status in Europe. this is the European communities that are trying to do likewise in their worlds. You'll see Portugal has none, but that's changing. We have a little project in the Mira River in the south, in Alentejo. It's very new. It's with the C3C group from the Ecology group in Foucault. There's a group down there, the core group. They're linked. Central Core. It's a rural learning center in San Luis. So you can just see there. It's at the very edge of the basin, the river basin. And they've got a funding. They're part of a funding group from ECOLISE and a few other groups. So they're the main point in Portugal, and they're helping other groups try to bring about ecological change. So get in contact with them if you're interested, if you're part of a community group, and hopefully we can make the change that's needed. So identify your river, identify its subbasins, because these are all fractal systems. Get to know it, and think and act in a fractal fashion. So our river in Lisbon is the River Tejo, or the Tagus, or the Tajo, collects Madrid and Lisbon and Cáceres. So they're our community. They're the big cities and all the ones in between that we need to start working together to work out how to live better together. And in Curitiba, earlier we were working on this. I'm just going to take these map system and actually explore it a bit deeper. So this explains what we're trying to get at. This idea, Curitiba municipality has got 6 different river basins. So you see the kind of orangey peach one that's there in the third map. And then that's broken into the sub-basins that are in there. So then breaking into that purple one, we've got the Pilarzinho and the Corte de Sabre or something like that. So this is an idea of the scale, the fractal way that we've got these replicating kind of systems that exist, systems within systems within systems. So if we found guardians that could be there to work for that little bit of river, and then those and their neighbors come together at the next scale up, and then the next scale up, etc., etc. And by the way, all this water feeds into Iguazu, a couple of 100 kilometers down. It forms the biggest waterfall in the world, the Foz do Iguaçu, the biggest, widest waterfall in the world. Beautiful Foz do Iguaçu between Argentina and Brazil. Liam Poe from Rotterdam, she's gone around looking at drinkable rivers. She's got a whole support system to make rivers drinkable again. And by the way, in the middle of Curitiba, the Bosque Gutierrez, that's the source of a font from a massive underwater aquifer. So the water comes out through the rocks. You can drink the water. It's the cleanest water you'll get. It's amazing. And it's right in the middle of the city. And the little kingfisher, or guarda-rios, or river guardian in Portuguese, that's what we call Larry. That's a little kingfisher along the Dodder River in Dublin. So we go wandering and we try to see him. Okay, so in finishing up, what I'm trying to say is use walks and talks to create meaningful moments to engage together for radical transformations. And they're just some pictures together over the years. In Lisbon, that means connecting with the main conferences that are on. Yeah, so it's a challenge. And I'm just seeing I've gone way over 20 minutes, so apologies. I'll finish up. This is just an example of working together, breaking into, again, those different teams and bringing groups together to have conversations together, because that's the challenge, to work together. So, oops, I'm not sure what happened there. Yeah. So our challenge, cool the climate, allow nature to return. Oops. So you can find some of the work that we've been doing or get links to the groups. So thanks very much, and Viva la Pachamama. And let's hope that we can be together in something like this quite soon. And yeah, so that's it. Sorry for going over time. And yeah. Okay, so I'm aware that we've hit this well over time. Okay. Vicky, we've gone over time, so can you advise?
Fine, yeah.
Okay,
if you want to connect tomorrow, we have an event in Biovilla, in Palmela. You're very welcome to come as well. Biovilla is a cooperative, and it has its birthday tomorrow, so we have some nice moments. Thank you, Duncan, for the presentation. If someone is curious about the event, I don't have the link now, but you can send the email to the WAVE project, and I will give you the guidelines in case you're interested to come tomorrow. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very valuable. And in case someone would like to give some comments or if you have any questions, just yeah, voice out. Thank you.
Hey, good night, everyone. Just to remember, a great and a huge fight against extractivism in the north of Portugal, Covas do Barroso. It's a huge act of activism of a community. So I guess many people here, I don't know how many people from Portugal know, but it's a riot that internationally has some voice. I don't know if Duncan know anything about Covas de Barroso.
Little bit.
Yeah, of course, of course. So it's just to remember that and that fight that are during from years, 7, 10 years, and still going. Thank you, thank you. It was really great and lots of information. I don't know if the presentation will be sent for us or not.
Yeah, the presentation is already online. Apologies, I went over the time limit there. Yeah, I've shared a link in the chat, so that links to the We Are Nature website, and there's a post there, and the PDF is embedded, and you also can get the link to the PDF, so you can read the PDF, and it has probably about 100 links to projects, people, groups, resources, etc., etc. So they're there for everyone. Use them. If you've got questions, more links, more things to follow, you can put it in the as a comment on the blog post. We don't have a dedicated space to kind of facilitate these conversations moving forward. But yeah, so if anyone else has any quick comments as well, just before we go, you're welcome to say something. And apologies again for going over.
Yeah, and I will send after this presentation, I will send everything via emails.
Maybe just one thing that you said, Duncan, that kind of resonated with me when you talked to the example of the Indigenous people in New Zealand fighting for over 125 years to save their river. I think what it tells us is, and maybe even myself, sometimes we're almost looking for quick wins and we want to see change, but some of these are intergenerational. So I suppose the message there is we have to do our bit. We mightn't see much fruits of it in the immediate future. It might be our children or our children's children, but maybe that's reason enough not to get despondent and to give up. So I think I took that from that example. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a pity that that person that I mentioned there, Malcolm McGann, died, because that was the work he was doing. He was acting as a bridge builder between the Indigenous communities. He went to the Indigenous in Australia, New Zealand, and he was saying, look, the Irish, we're not Indigenous. We're not legally, officially Indigenous people. He spoke Irish. Many of us have lost the language. Not all, but many have. But they were saying, look, just stop all that. Get over that. The work is too important. You're a representative of these different connected communities. The work is to help build the web that can make life stay. Simple as that. And learn the beauty to connect with what is the essence of life again. So it's all doable. Hopefully we're getting there. Hazami?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for your chock full of information presentation. A lot to digest, a lot of images and examples. One thing that's caught my attention recently, and I'm still very new to Portugal, and I'm not sure of all the different, groups working locally in the climate justice area, but I've seen, like, given the storms and the major, impact of the past month and a half of relentless storms, and there's also talk of a shortage of workers and labor, and sort of the the connection between climate change and immigrant immigration policy. And I'm curious, has there been connections with that already in the city or country of how, activism in that area of realizing how much it's both in the construction industry, but also the agricultural industry where immigrants have been really like scapegoated and laws have changed or in practice. I'm curious what's what more you have to share about that or others involved. I'm interested to know.
If anyone has responses to Zani?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it reminded me of the interconnectedness. When we talk about climate justice, it includes so many other things and issues of equity and immigration. And because of the rise in the right-wing party and all of the, attacks on immigrants, but yet you leave, the country needs immigrants. But how can they be incorporated, like, or be welcomed, but also given rights for stability and long-term, status without abuse and exploitation?
I see there's some Portuguese people who probably have far more. Yeah, João?
I think she's talking about. I think. May I?
Yeah, fire ahead, João. Yeah.
I think she was trying to, or she was very explicit, and she was trying to explain that we still lack regulation and the legal rights for as humans for immigrants, but it's more or less the same all over, and yeah, it's a good issue. Also, I would like to emphasize that as an environmental geologist, is not possible for me to work in Portugal because public institutions they don't have job opportunities for this class of disciplines. Also for disaster risk reduction. So as we see, Portugal is really in bad shape regarding these politics for prevention. And I am wondering, you have the label of the Faculty of Sciences of Lisbon. I was graduated there in environmental and applied geology, but in reality, we have no status, we have no visibility, we cannot work. I'm on the market for almost 30 years, and it's really tough to work on these subjects. So we should talk about this, and I'm confronting the faculty because it's a personal catastrophe, is a disaster for the community and for a proper governance, and we are really throwing the money away. For instance, regarding erosion prevention, we are doing the opposite of what we should, and we are just having more heavy structures, heavy engineering to a problem that should be solved along with nature. So I will stop because it's a long.
Thanks for that, João, because I think that is part of the challenge. And anytime we can identify challenges, then we know what some of the work is, what we need to see about how we can start to deal with it. So, like, I've been involved in Foucault through, you probably know Gilles Peñalops, working with the action research side of things. So with that, identifying communities on the ground and using the process of research as a tool to identify and support communities on the ground, and use the academic process as an engagement tool to start exploring how it can get better. And that group CORE down in Alentejo, that's the group I'd recommend connecting with. ECOLISE have support in that, and there's other groups in other parts of Europe as well. It can go further, of course, and identifying what problems need addressing is part of it. The second thing I'd say is that in recent years, thankfully, the regenerative movement has been gaining more popularity in Europe, and Portugal has become quite a strong part of that. There's, I think, different sorts of what is regenerative process, not all good, but that's somewhere that can be looked at as well, like how to get that community, find out where they're trying to actually create work and work with all groups, including some of the great support of actually working with groups of immigrants on the ground, supporting, like I know Hazami and Ab, they've been doing work with olive collecting, for example. You know, there's not enough people to harvest the olives, and now people are harvesting olives and using that as a support, a solidarity support for communities in Palestine. So that's just one example now, but there's always lots of solutions, and I think the key is bringing the people together, identifying clearly what problems are, and then trying to find solutions. And if we can look in the wider ecosystem, we can see it worked over there, it might work here, we can try it. Do we have support to try that? So that's an initial response.
Thank you.
Okay, so apologies again. I know I'm aware that we've gone really over time, and that's completely my fault. So apologies. I thought I could squash all that in a bit quicker, but I think at the start things kind of took a knock-on effect. So the links are there. You can read the PDF. You can get links to all that. Try to make sense of it. Try to give us feedback. Let the Wave Biovilla team, Biovilla, go to Biovilla if you can, if you're in Portugal. Wonderful group, wonderful space. And yeah, what else? Yeah, that's really it. Hopefully this is just a little sharing to try to give a little bit of an idea of what actually the solutions are there. There are solutions, and if we work together, we can bring about the change that's needed. I hope that this helps somewhat, and I hope together we can move forward. And yeah, who knows where we'll get to. So I'll finish off by passing back over to Vicky, who can close us out. So thank you very much, everybody, for turning up, for your for putting up with this time being broken, and I wish you well. So over to Vicky. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You will receive an email with this information. Thank you, Duncan.